Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road Podcast. I'm your host Chris, alongside my co-host Dean. No JJ this time, but back with us for a part 2 is Mr. Dave the Bearded Menace. Welcome back,
Yeah.
Dave.
Thanks for having me back. It was a lot of fun last time.
We went through quite a few stories, but when we ended our last recording, you were like, dude, I got so much more.
So where we last left off, we were talking about, or at least I think we're about to start talking about like my cousin when she
Right.
came to live with us. So for anyone who didn't see part one, grew up in a haunted house, and I guess the ability to see these things or feel these things or whatever are usually on the female side of my family. And it usually only pops off when there's at least 3 of us in the house in a location or whatever. So my sister, it was me, my mom, my sister, and my brother. But obviously on the female side was my mom and my sister. And for some reason, I can see this stuff too. Probably because mostly my mom raised me. Things are crazy while my mom and me and my sister lived there. But then when my sister moved out, things died down a little bit. It wasn't until my cousin moved in with us from El Salvador that things started up again. I don't remember what her first instance was. I'm really trying to remember what it was. I just remember things, I guess you could say, out of order, But the one I remember first was, she used to be a smoker, and she would smoke like outside in the garage, right? She was outside smoking, reading a book, because this is like in the early 2000s. There was no smartphones or nothing. She said while she's there smoking her cigarette, she said she felt like something kind of watching her, like just a weird feeling. When she looked towards the door of the garage, she said it looked like there was someone like peeking around the door, like so. And as soon as she saw them, they kind of just like let go and just like ran away down the breezeway. So my cousin obviously, chased him down. She's like, who the F is this, right? Now the breezeway was like kind of like, I don't want to say it was a paved type of like cement. So you could hear someone like running up and down the breezeway. She didn't hear anybody. So she figured maybe it was me and my brother, because we ran directly probably back inside to, hide and go away. Cousin comes in the house, and the entrance to the house went right into the kitchen. And there, my mom was in the kitchen watching her novelas. So my cousin asks her, hey, did Dave or Joe come in through here? Because I think they were trying to scare me. And my mom goes, no, they've been upstairs watching TV the whole time. And right when my mom said that, she heard both my brother and I start laughing at something on TV that we were watching. And she was like, oh, that wasn't them. There was actually something out there watching me smoke a cigarette, like actually like watching me. And I think this is like one of the first time, like I guess whatever it was, noticed that she was there, maybe. And that's where it started to kind of snowball from there. When she first moved in, we were still renovating the house. So
Question, Dave. Is this in Jersey or is this in Connecticut?
Connecticut. This is Connecticut house.
Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah. So for a while, we were renovating the house, and we were renovating the upstairs, which became my room, my brother's room. My brother and I had like our TV and computer set up there for like, goofing off and watching TV. But like other than that, you really couldn't sleep up there. Basically, like the walls were taken down to the bare bones. There wasn't even insulation on the walls. If you were sleeping up there, you were freezing or melting, depending on the time of year. So my brother and I stayed in his room, which was next to the bathroom. My mom stayed in her room. My cousin just unfortunately slept in the living room on the futon. I can't remember if this is all one night or separate nights, but stuff would happen to her while she slept in the living room. Let's just say they were all on the same night, just for the sake of like, the story. But she's laying in the middle of the bed. She said she has a dog with her. Dog's laying in the bed with her, all that stuff. And she felt like someone pushing like on the bottom of the futon. Now, this is an old school futon that had like the flip out and the mattress. Like there was no frame. It was just metal mattress and springs. That was it. And she said she could feel like someone pushing on the bottom of the futon. Originally, she didn't think anything of it until the dog started growling. And that's when she knew there was actually something underneath the bed, like actually pushing up. She didn't want to get out of bed because obviously, first thing you think of as soon as you step out of the bed, someone's going to grab your foot, grab your hand, whatever. So she's like, this is my fate. I'm staying here. I'm not moving because whatever it is, it's going to grab me as soon as I get off the bed. While she's lying there, and again, not sure if it's the same night or separate nights, but while she's in the bed, she said she heard what sounded like in the kitchen right next to her, like someone like tapping their hands on the counter, like their fingers, like almost like waiting for her to get up, like they're just counting time. She said sure what sounded like maybe a paper towel get ripped off the roll. It sounded like that's distinct like sound. Again, while lying there accepting her fate that something's under the bed, upstairs while my brother and I were renovating, we had our weight room. We have like our weights up there also. She said she heard what sounded like one of the weights hit the floor, like right above her, like someone just picked up and dropped like one of the heavy weights. The lightest weight we had up there was probably maybe a 5 pound like round like weight. Not heavy, but not light either. So it's not going to fall off on its own, and it's not going to move or slide on its own. It was like one of those old school rusty metal weights, not the rubber ones. It was like you got tetanus just from touching the weight, let alone like getting like any strength from it. And she heard that just boom, like hit the ground right above her. Right when she heard this, she said, fuck it, I've had enough. And she just like grabbed the dog and she walked into my mom's room and slept in my mom's room for like the rest of the night. Like she was like, I'm not dealing with this. Like, fuck it. And stayed there. I do remember one night I was sleeping in my mom's room because my nephew was staying over. And I do remember her coming in like scared and crying, saying she wanted to sleep in there also because of something that happened in the living room. But I don't remember which night that could have been. A lot of stuff happened to her in that living room. It all melts together. Unfortunately, could have been any one of those instances that that I talked about, where she came in and woke me up. She's like, "I'm sleeping here with you in Michael. Like, I'm not going out there. Like F it. I don't care."
So when those things happen to her, and I know you said it's like all a blur, so it might be hard for you to remember. Do y'all ever remember hearing those distinct noises as well? For example, you can't mistake hearing something heavy drop.
Correct.
Like that shit's loud.
Mm-hmm.
So did you guys ever wake up at the same time like, oh, what the fuck was that?
Not that night, but we've heard nights where like it sounded like the weights moved upstairs. I do remember that specifically. Now I did bring it up. Now I grew up old school weightlifting. You re-rack your plates, you re-rack your weights. That's how I was raised to lift.
That's the only way to lift.
Thank you.
Re-rack your shit, especially for these new people at the gym. They leave shit everywhere. But anyway.
Yeah. So that's a whole new podcast for a whole new fucking night. But yeah, so we would re-rack our stuff. We put our stuff back nice and organized because sometimes when you want to lift, you want to be able to find your weights easily, right? And it would sound like the weights would slide across the ground, or they would move upstairs, or it would sound like the curling bar, which usually didn't have any weight on it and it was laying against the wall. Sound like the curling bar, or at least a bar, would roll across the ground upstairs. And we'd go upstairs and check, and it would be nothing. Like at all. Nothing moved. And we only heard those sounds when the weight set was upstairs. So and the weight set, even when the rooms were renovated, the weights still stayed in my room because I had the bigger room and my room was just messier. So my brother was like, just keep the weights in your room. We'll work out in your room. It's fine. For years, those weights were up there and it always sounded like they always moved. It stopped when we took the weights out from the bedroom and put them in the garage. So something moved those weights consistently upstairs. And we had hardwood floors, so they weren't sliding easily on the ground. And even when it was my bedroom, I still kept those weights organized. So there was no reason for any of those things to move on their own. But thank you. I've actually forgot about that. And that happened quite often with the weights. Quite often.
Before you go into another story, I want to go back to that experience. And if we can revisit real quick, did she ever talk more in depth that she already alluded to before, about, because it sounds like, the conversations or the thing, whenever it was coming about and these things were happening, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys seemed a little bit apprehensive to approach it, to approach the conversation. But did you guys ever have a deeper conversation about what you think was driving that force? Is it good energy, bad energy? Because a lot of people we talked to in the past, when this stuff happens, it always comes down to a negative energy, but it doesn't sound like it was a negative environment. So when something sporadically happens like that, my immediate thought goes to negative energy. What's your perspective on what happened with those experiences?
So it definitely was drawn to us, whether it was negative or positive. In my cousin's case, it was more negative because here she is. She's an 18-year-old kid, who's in the prime of her life, now living in another country where she barely speaks the language and she can't do anything. She's away from her friends. She's away from the world she knew. She's away from the neighborhood she grew up in and the home she grew up in, living thousands of miles away. And she literally can't do anything because in El Salvador and in most countries, when you're 18, you can do a lot of stuff, go to the bar, clubs, all that stuff, and hang out. And she couldn't even get into the clubs because at the time she only had her passport, and they wouldn't at the time, for whatever reason, they wouldn't let her use the passport to get in the clubs. They wanted specifically a state ID. So she couldn't even, for a year and a half, she couldn't even do anything that she wanted to. My mom had to buy her cigarettes. She couldn't buy her own cigarettes. There's not much she couldn't do. She was always sad and depressed. And that kind of brought this stuff. I want to say, to the house. Whatever was in the house did mess with her a lot. One night, like I remember, so I think it was in 2000 and it was either 2000 or 2001. I don't remember specifically, but there was a massive earthquake in El Salvador. It was like an 8.7, like some type of apocalyptic earthquake. My cousin's neighborhood was literally washed away, like gone. Her home, everything gone. And a good chunk of her friends passed away in that earthquake. So now she has nothing to go back to. Her home, everything is gone. Like her dad was living like in Italy at the time. So like he wasn't even coming back. He's like, whatever, I'm in Italy. I'm here. You stay in America and figure it out. So everything she knew was like literally washed away and gone, like leveled to the ground. She was really lonely. At the time we finished renovating the house, she had her own room, but she didn't want to sleep in her room. She wanted to sleep in my mom's room with my mom because, you know, that's a mother figure for her. Her mom unfortunately passed away a year before she came living with us. So a lot of baggage came with her before the earthquake. And she said while she was laying in bed, she felt like the covers move. And she's like, you know, what the H? So she gets up to look, and she's like under the cover, almost like a snake or something, like moving towards her foot. So she freezes. She's like, oh, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't want to touch it, whatever. And so she felt like a hand, like a cold, clammy hand, grab her ankle. She was like, She goes to grab it. But when she grabbed it, she realized it was like one of her best friends from her old neighborhood. Like instantly, as soon as she touched it, she realized it was one of her friends who passed away in the earthquake. She sat there for like a while holding on to the wrist of, because she said it felt like her friend. The wrist was like thin, very feminine, you know, but she knew from the touch it was her friend who passed away. Once she realized it was her friend, and I guess you could say the friend realized who she was, the hand let go, and it just kind of like slipped away under the covers. My cousin was kind of like at peace then, knowing that, you know, one of her friends said, hey, we were okay. You know, we're not, I mean, you know, as okay as one can be on the afterlife. You can let go of us. She was a little better in the house, but stuff still kind of happened to her in there quite often, even after that event.
She ever had any experiences that you know of that include like sleep paralysis or anything like that? Because this is starting to sound like something where people who are more sensitive to such things tend to have, like when they're falling asleep. It seems like these stories come about when there's like nighttime tiredness, you know, like slipping into unconsciousness, that kind of veil or whatever. So do you know if she has experienced anything like that?
No, not at all. In fact, the only ones that we experienced it were my brother and I in the house. And I stopped experiencing sleep paralysis when we moved out of the house. And my wife and I were living like still in the same city, but like somewhere else, like in the downtown area. I stopped experiencing sleep paralysis because while I lived there, I had sleep paralysis like every night. So did my brother. My brother doesn't believe in jack. And even he had sleep paralysis every single night. And the same with him. When he moved, the sleep paralysis was gone. It left. Like he maybe has it once every year at the most, you know, but he stopped having sleep paralysis. When we moved to our apartment downtown, I didn't have it for at least a year or so, but then it came back around COVID, like sleep paralysis randomly. We moved here to our new condo, again, gone, and it started coming back within like the last year. So it's like it follows.
Holy shit. So I got a couple of questions here, but I'm going to start with the one that's fresh in my mind with the sleep paralysis. When that happened to you in the house, did you see anything? Did you feel anything? Or you were like woke up and you couldn't move, like your normal type of sleep paralysis? Or was this like on some freak shit?
First time it happened, it was, excuse my French, but fucking terrifying. I'm in my bedroom and I wake up, as one does, or I'm aware of my surroundings while I'm in sleep paralysis, and I can't move and I can't free and I can't do anything, obviously. I only move my eyes. And this like thing just comes into the bedroom. The best way I can describe it is like shadow feature-ish, but the light coming in from the streetlights did show me some type of physical form. But the thing I won't forget is the way its head would move. Because his head was like flying back and forth, like it's almost like being electrocuted. Like you ever see Jacob's Ladder or play like PT on the PlayStation 4? Like the way like the head would move, like body was still, but the head was like flying everywhere. That's what it was doing. The thing jumped on me. Its head got right next to my face, and it's like its head's like flying everywhere, like back and forth. And I could feel like the wind coming off its head. Like I could hear the sound of like buzzing and like meat. Like it's just like kind of like this terrible fucking sound. And I woke up screaming. Like I was able to fight it off, and I like woke up like screaming my fucking like ass off. And my brother comes in the room and he's like, what happened? And I described what happened. He's like, oh, you had a night terror, sleep paralysis. That's okay. I'm like, there's nothing okay about this. Like this sucks. I'm like 15. There is nothing cool about this at all, dude. Like no.
No.
And yeah, from there on, like every night or every other night, it'd be something similar. I'd see that, and I even sketched it out. Like I'll find it like while I'm talking about it. I was in my bedroom. I woke up and there's like this old womanish looking thing in the corner, but it was tall, big. Its head was almost touching the ceiling, and its mouth and face were just extra elongated. You know, normal head here, and it was like out to here, like its mouth and face. Its eyes were messed up. Its jaw was kind of misaligned, but it's almost like it's like either it was like in a straight jacket or its arms were like tentacles, and it was like wrapped around itself, like almost like it was squeezing itself to death. Like I drew it years ago, and I posted it on Instagram because that was the only way I could actually deal with like what it was. But I would see it constantly. Also, when I would wake up, like staring into the ceiling during sleep paralysis, there's like a thing also that used to be in the ceiling that kind of looked like a black hole, but like weird tendrils coming off of it, and it would just be like just staring at me, smiling practically while I'm like in bed, frozen.
And this happened every night?
Every
while
other
you were
night.
at the house? How did you get any rest? Like,
I dealt with it, I guess. Like, you know, like there, I mean, it's not like I had a bad sleep. I just wake up, freak out, be up for like a half hour, go back to bed, and that would be the end of it, kind of. And some nights it would just be like sleep paralysis by itself. I'd wake
Mhm.
up and I couldn't move, which isn't nearly as bad as like, oh, cool. Hopefully I pass out again and just go along with my day. But then there was other evenings where it'd be those things in the bedroom.
And your brother saw those things as well.
Nope. The only one he saw was the one with the vibrating head. That was it. There was an old man that would stare at me that looked like this guy.
Holy shit.
Like that'd be in the corner staring at me for whatever reason. Just
I mean, other than the fact those are terrifying, that's a pretty good drawing.
oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
You should turn those into like t-shirts or something. That's a, you know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
paranoid.
And this is not the best, but this is what the thing that was in the ceiling would look like. It was like this.
It looks like a metalled out gas.
Right? Like it's that's the only way I could describe what it was. It'd always be in the ceiling, right above me where I was sleeping, and would just be staring at me with weird like stuff coming off of it.
You saw those things. Like anytime you describe it, it sounds like fucking Resident Evil type of bosses that you would encounter. It's
I mean,
insane.
Part of me, and I'm trying, you know, I always try to think logical of it as well. Part of me, because I used to play a lot of horror games back in those days, also like
Right.
Resident Evil, obviously, Silent Hill, obviously, you
Uh-huh.
know, a lot of those games. So part of me wants to say that those influenced me a little bit before I went to bed, you know, and I just didn't realize it at the time. So I want to say that maybe not, I'm being logical with it. Maybe 90% of those things were inspired by what I just played before I went to bed.
Sure.
You know, it's very possible because only I saw those things. My brother never saw those things. The only one he ever saw was like the shaky head guy thing. That's the only thing he ever saw in his night terrors. And it'd be weird stuff where it's like in the dream, he would be, because he was in the army, and in the dream, he'd be back in his in the barracks, right? And he'd wake up and his bunkmate was like, hey, man, we got to get up. We got to go to formation. And he's like, all right, cool. But then he can't get up. And he's stuck there and he's frozen in his bunk. And then his bunkmate would look at him and then his head would start shaking all over the place and moving around. And then the same thing, like the bunkmate would jump on him. And then my brother would like wake up and now he's in his bedroom in the house. But the thing is still there, like holding on to him. It's like head shaking like everywhere right next to his face.
Do you remember what that thing felt like? Was it like cold, warm, or just something that was, you felt
It's
like,
like
just presence?
Like a heavy book bag. That's the best way I can describe it. Like I don't remember temperature per se. I just remember like it felt like there was something on you, just something like wrapped around you, like holding on tight and like trying like bearing down onto you into the bed.
Right. I'm just trying to think, because I think you have a pretty logical answer with regards to horror games, right?
Yeah, to me that makes the most sense. That it was
Yeah.
probably that.
Yeah, but one thing I would say is the shaking one. One, it sounds like one of the most annoying zombies you could encounter in Resident Evil 0. Those like brown shaking ones.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, what I would say is that with your brother's sleep paralysis and his night terror, it took the form of his friend.
Right.
With you, it looks like whatever it was knew that Dave is into this type of stuff. This type of stuff is scary. So I'm making the case that whatever it was had some sort of intelligence, that it knew how to manipulate itself to get the scariest reaction out of you. Because the only thing I could think of, and the same thing with my case, you know, why do these things do what they do? It's feeding off the fear. That's the only thing I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, he loves horror games. Let me manifest myself in that form or fashion because I know it'll fucking scare him.
I never thought of that, huh?
What I would say, I think you're right in the sense that whatever you're doing before you go to sleep will directly manipulate like your dream and what happens. But I think whatever that was clearly because everyone in your household encountered it. This is the same house when your sister encountered La Vieja, right?
Yep, and I actually was sleeping in the same room she saw La Vieja in.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so maybe it to me it had to have been that.
Huh.
Just taking these different forms. Because even with your cousin, with her friends that passed away,
Yeah.
because whatever these things are, I know you said, listeners, if you didn't listen to the previous episode, that was episode 109, Dave's first episode. So if you have not listened to that one and you're trying to understand and follow the story here, go listen to that first and come back to this one. But in that episode, when Dave and his family moved into that house, his sister had an encounter with this old lady that essentially kind of like attacked her, but didn't at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife has seen that old lady on a couple occasions. Even your friend that was in the driveway in that
Oh yeah,
in the
Lewis. Yeah.
Lewis saw the old lady in the window.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing like a common denominator with this old lady. And to me, it would sound like whatever it is. I know you said before you don't think it was evil or malevolent. I'm starting to think it was based off of the, I guess, the common theme of like you guys having the shit scared out of you consistently.
With my cousin and like the thing touching her, like I want to say that was honest to goodness like a good thing.
Mhm.
Like it actually was her friend from the afterlife, because for a solid week she was inconsolable, you know, because she lost everything back in El Salvador. And it wasn't until she had that encounter where it touched her ankle and she grabbed it and she realized it was her friend. That's when she felt like loads better. Like literally the next morning, she looked amazing. Like she looked pretty. I'm like, what'd you do? Like, you know, did you put makeup on? She goes, no, like, let me tell you something real quick. And so I want to say at least in that case, it was positive, but everything else, no, you're right. It was kind of out there to scare the crap out of us.
Yeah. And the one thing that I could to think back to, you talked about, I know you briefly talked about New Jersey and things would happen there. And you
Mhm.
talked about the story with your dad and the day laborer, how that guy was probably still in the walls today.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. When you think back, do you notice a common trend between what happened in that Jersey house and what happened in Connecticut, or was Jersey a little bit different? It was kind of like creaks and bangs.
So from what I remember being told to me in Jersey, 'cause I don't remember really much, everybody saw something in Jersey, and it was always something trying to terrify them or do whatever. Like my mom thought she saw my dad sleeping on the couch with a blanket over him and all that stuff, and only like his feet were sticking out the bottom of the blanket. He was almost laying like a body that had like a blanket draped over it. And she thought it was him because she saw the feet. And then she realized my dad wasn't home. His truck wasn't in the driveway. You know, whatever she's realized it wasn't him. She's like, oh shit, that's something else. And she went up like knife in hand, ready to like take out whatever it was. And she removed the sheet and there was nothing there. And like everything was just gone, like nothing. Or she would hear like us laughing or calling her when it wasn't us. We'd be upstairs doing something else. And she'd be downstairs cooking dinner, and she could swear she heard us running around the living room, running around downstairs saying mommy, mommy, and like trying to get her attention.
Chris, that's your favorite, the good old hearing the voices from somebody else that aren't
Yep.
mimics, right?
Yep.
Oh, I fucking hate that.
The common denominator for me would be it always starts slow and then it just ramps up little by little. Like somehow it gains energy from it. The big two common denominators of the two houses were when we were living in the New Jersey house, my dad was still renovating it, which I'm sure was pissing off something. You know what I mean?
So, Dave, going back to your cousin now.
Mm-hmm.
So she had the stuff, you know, that went on in the living room. She saw the whatever thing looking at her while she was out having a smoke. Was there anything more like definitive that she told you guys about that was like, holy fuck?
So I don't remember where my brother and I were in this story. I think we're at a friend's house. We were playing GoldenEye somewhere. I forgot what we were doing. My mom was working. It was just my cousin in the house by herself. And she was in my mom's room watching TV. It's like probably around like 11 o'clock. I'm not sure. But she's awake. She's not sleeping. She's awake. And she's staring at the TV. And then for whatever reason, she looks towards the door. And the door was like, has a little tiny crack open. And she said it looked like someone walking by the door. But like a older woman wearing like a nightgown or like a hospital gown or something, just like hobbling by. I think she was walking away from like the bathrooms, away from the bedrooms, whatever. So my cousin stared for a second. She was like, "Oh, whatever, like I'm not going to think about it." She goes back to watching TV. Moments later, she looks back at the door again, but now she sees the same thing, same lady walking the opposite way. So, and same thing. It looked like she was like limping, injured, just walking, like kind of hobbling by the door. But an older woman, she said, hospital gown or nightgown, white hair, walking by. She basically saw the old woman in the house. She said that she sees it. She's like, all right, cool. I am locking myself in my aunt's bedroom. I'm not coming out until these two guys come back home. Like nothing. The holy shit moment was because, she saw the old woman. My sister mentioned seeing the old woman, So at this point in time, that was two people seeing the old woman in the house. In different parts of the house. My mom picked me up from school, from high school, and my cousin stayed home for whatever reason, just didn't want to come out, older teenager stuff. And when we come pulling in, my cousin is hanging out like at the edge of the driveway, not even in the yard. She's just outside, just chilling. So we get there and we're like, what's going on? And she's like, I was just in the living room, like just thinking of my thoughts. I saw what looked like a woman that, going up the stairs at the corner of my eye. Like, I don't remember if it was going up the stairs, downstairs, but she saw a woman on the stairs at the corner of her eye. Like when she was looking down, she looked up and the woman's gone. She walks up to, investigate and look around, trying to see if, maybe it was like a reflection of light, like something got in her eye, whatever. We had this crawl space underneath the stairs. We would put just storage, concrete floor, no way to get in there from outside the house. It was just underneath the stairs in the middle of the house. And she said the door to that crawl space started shaking, like someone was banging on it from the inside, like hard. And she sat there watching like the door like move back and forth, like someone's hitting it, shaking it. And she was like, no, and decided to go outside and just stay out there until we got home.
You mentioned that you guys had a dog. Did you guys ever notice the dog acting weird randomly, like it would stare at certain things? Or
I mean, the occasional stare at nothing and barking, sure. That happened quite often, especially when we first got him. It happened whenever I was by myself in the house. My mom would be at work and he'd be staring at the corner of the bed, just barking at the hallway. And it's like, cool, man. Thanks, buddy. Like, that's exactly what I need right now. And I know it was always coincidence, but he would always bark at the screen whenever I was playing Silent Hill. And it's like, you don't need to do that, buddy. Like, this game's already scary enough. Like, don't bark at the screen. A couple nights, though, there was something that always played with him. Because there's a certain way a dog runs and pants when it's playing versus when it's, like, angry or in defensive. And that would happen quite often. Years later, when I was in college and my cousin had moved out and all that stuff, I was upstairs playing, I think, Armored Core or doing something. And I was just me and the dog by ourselves in the house. And I distinctly heard the sound of his ball being thrown around the living room. Now, he was never the dog to throw the ball on his own. He would bring the ball to you and he would want you to throw it. He was never one to just chuck it on his own. Something was throwing the ball downstairs, playing with the dog. And when I got to the foot of the steps, I'm like calling him, I'm like, hey, O'Malley, like, what are you doing, O'Malley? And he comes running to the bottom of the stairs, staring at me, but happy, like he's playing and like panting, all that stuff. And I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? And then he looks back into the living room, barks like a playful bark. And I'm like, buddy, just come upstairs. We're playing video games. Let's, not do whatever it is you're doing. And he came upstairs and hung out with me. And like, yeah, something was playing with him downstairs, like for a bit, because he was that dog where if you left him by himself in the house, he was destructive. He didn't want to be by himself because he was a companion dog. He always wanted to be with someone. However, there was some days where we would leave him by himself and he was fine, as if someone was in the house the entire time with him when he was by himself. Something kept him company while we were gone sometimes, and it was always very very weird.
That's something that Chris and I keep touching on from time to time in this podcast, but we have yet to do a deep dive on, is like animals like sensitivity to this sort of thing. And it seems like you see TikTok videos all the time, like animals staring at a door or something, and like it like starts to creep. It's something weird like that. And it's just something that people don't seem to talk about very often, but it's so interesting to think about how animals interact with what could be like the spiritual side of stuff. And I don't know, what's your take on that? Like, do you think he was more inclined to for a reason, or was it just kind of like something picked him for whatever reason?
Something picked him because nothing bad ever happened to him in the house or ever at all. And not saying anything bad happened to us. It was just like scary stuff that would happen. You know, like we'd see something spooky or we'd hear something spooky. No one ever got like accosted or whatever, except for my buddy Berto in the living room a couple times. But to him, no, to him, it was like a normal house. I mean, he would bark at strangers often. So anytime he would bark at nothing, it was probably because it was a stranger, not because it was scaring. Like anyone would come to the house, he would bark, like, obviously mailman, delivery, what pizza guy, whatever, but never out of fear, just more like, who are you? Who are you? Why are you here? So him, no, nothing ever bothered him. It just seemed like it was playful. A cat that we used to have, it sounded like in the New Jersey house, it sounded like it would chase her around sometimes. Like she'd like hiss at it, screech at it, yell at it. She'd come to us and her tail would be like this big because whatever it was like scared the bejesus out of her. In the Jersey house, when we moved to Connecticut house, I don't remember the cat having anything bad happen to her that I can remember off the top of my head. Most of the cats in the house, when we had them, never really reacted to anything in the house that I can remember. At least not, again, not in that house. In Jersey house, yes. In Connecticut house, not that I can remember. It was mostly just the dog, and that was it.
Okay, so I got to flip back to something that might be sensitive for you or other people. I don't know. We'll see. The first time I ever spent in New Jersey, it was my first ever girlfriend. I was in high school. She was from New Jersey, and I was going to school like right across the state line. And there was this one weekend where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go, like, let's go meet your family or whatever. And of course, like, young, naive or whatever, it was just a weird, awkward time in general. But I always tell people this. The first time I crossed the line into New Jersey, I just had this weird feeling. Like I had been to numerous states before. I've traveled before that. So it wasn't like a first time leaving the state sort of thing. There was just something about New Jersey that gave me the heebie-jeebies. And I know not all of New Jersey's the same. Like it's like anywhere else where there's probably different areas that are giving off different vibes. I'm sure there are really nice parts of New Jersey. So I say that to you. You have time spent in New Jersey. Does that resonate at all? Like were there any weird things about New Jersey you noticed, or for you, was it pretty much a normal place other than the experiences you had in your house?
So I shit you not, like my wife and I talk about this all the time because I have cousins and family still in New Jersey. And I told my wife, like, I can somehow tell when I'm in New Jersey, like something about like the way my feet touch the ground.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
Handles, like I know when I'm in Jersey.
I feel the same way. It's so strange.
I've been to most of New England. I've been to Florida, California. Like I drove across like freaking the state to Chicago. Like I've been to different states, like you. Like I've traveled, and everywhere feels the same. Like yeah, the vibe's different. If like the culture is different in the city, you know what I mean? Like Chicago is a very big, friendly city, so it's a very the vibe's different. But Jersey, it's just every time I am in Jersey, I just know.
Yeah. It's not even the people.
Weird. Yeah.
Like it's just like the air. I don't know how to explain it. There's something about the air. I remember really quickly something that really was, I just thought was so borderline strange and or interesting was the first time I went there, we took this exit and I had never seen like one of those like clover shaped exits before. It was just like the way that the exit, you had to like cross 2 lanes of traffic or like 4 lanes of traffic and then go around this big clover shaped turn. And when we took that turn, it was filthy. There was like trash. It was the dirtiest turnoff I had ever seen in my life up to that point. And here's the funny thing. When I went back there like a week or 2 later, it was spotless. The same exact exit. And I'm like, what a weird place. Like you would think that if it was like that rundown and shitty, like people would not care. Right. But then there's obviously somebody who cares who just cleaned it up completely spotless. So it just, I don't know if there's like something more to that. Like half the state is just like people who don't give a fuck about anything. And the other half is like people who really, really care. And there's this weird mixture of positive and negative energy constantly flowing.
Yeah, I think it's both. Because like I went to college. I've had friends who were from Jersey, and there's 2 kinds of people from Jersey. I'm from Jersey, or I'm from fucking Jersey, and what? Like,
yeah.
And I think you're right. It's that. It's the people who really care about Jersey, and there's people who are like, I'm from Jersey.
Like the Garden State movie, like that.
Yes.
That's the vibe I get from that. It's just like, oh man, I've never seen a movie capture the essence of a state so beautifully.
And there's people like me that can't wait to tell you that we're from New York.
Yeah. You get all our shit run off. No.
Yeah, right. Dave,
I'm from Connecticut. We have trees.
I live in Western Pennsylvania. We have trees and mountains.
And we have winter that just does not want to die. Winter never wants to die in Connecticut. It has snowed in May in a couple years. Like,
oh, God.
Yeah, winter never leaves Connecticut. It's just
It's forever cold.
Yeah.
You talked about your experiences. You talked about your brother. You talked about your cousin. I'm curious about what your parents experienced. Well, specifically, like, I don't know if it's talking about your dad is a touchy subject. We could cut that part out.
No.
If he experienced anything in the Jersey house, and did your mom ever talk about the Connecticut house in general?
So my dad experienced I think we talked about in the last show, like the light plug being unplugged when he was working on the chimney.
Yeah,
he experienced that a lot. I don't remember if it was him who saw this or my mom saw this, but there was in the New Jersey house, there was like a lady in white that would just be there. My sister saw her one time outside playing with these trees. And I don't remember if it was my mom or my dad, but someone saw her at the bottom of the stairs when they're at the top of the stairs, like in the middle of the night. And she was just there staring at them like nothing, not scared. And then she just walked off into the living room. My dad chased someone out of the bedroom once. Him and my mom were sleeping in the Jersey house, and he said he woke up to see like a shadow at the foot of the bed. And my dad, he's from like the backwoods of El Salvador. He's really not scared of anything. So the first thing he thought of was like, yo, someone's in my house, right? So he gets up ready to rumble. He said this thing, the shadow, whatever it was, like literally ran out of the room. It just was gone. And my dad chased it downstairs, chased it outside, because he said it looked like it went outside. He gets outside and he steps on a rake and almost breaks his nose. I'm not kidding. He comes in. My mom saw him. He has a big red mark on his face. And he's like, I'll tell you in the morning. Forget about it. And that's when he tells her, like, there was someone in the room last night. And my mom's like, there's no one in the room. There's something wrong with this house. And he's like, no, there was someone in the room. Someone broke in. I chased him out. It's fine. Another day or another night, dad wakes up to my mom, like, laughing or making noise. And he's like, you know, what she's doing about whatever. And we looked at the foot of the bed. It looked like someone was underneath the covers, like moving it, like tickling her foot. And that's what she was laughing at. Someone was tickling her foot. So again, he's like, yo, who the fuck is in her house? And he just yanks the covers off and nothing. No one's there. And he was like, oh, maybe it was the wind, my imagination, and then just put the covers back on them and just went to bed. In Jersey house, my mom saw, like I said, my dad sleeping possibly, or what could have been my dad sleeping on the couch. Kids like running around, like calling her and like pretending to be us. In Connecticut house, she saw what she thought was me in the kitchen. It was like already years later. I'm like working at a real full-time job. Brother's not living in the house anymore. It's just me and my mom. She comes home from working like second shift, and it's around 9-10 o'clock at night. She's in the driveway, listening to radio, and she looks into the kitchen window, and she says she just sees me there standing still, like staring outside in the middle of the kitchen. So she's like, what the fuck is he doing? He's just standing there, like the TV's not even on. What's he doing hanging out in the kitchen? That's what she noticed. Like whatever it was big. Like the top of the head was almost touching the ceiling of the kitchen. And it's not that big of a, like 7-foot ceilings, nothing crazy, but still like the top of the head was almost touching the ceiling. And she said what was spooky was it was perfectly still, not swaying like a normal person would or nothing, just still like a statue, not moving. She looked out to the front of the yard and noticed my car wasn't even there. I wasn't even I usually used to park like right outside the front gate. Car's not even there. So she's like, that's not David. I don't know what that is. So she leaves, goes to work, back to her job, and she calls me. Now, meanwhile, I'm at the bar with my friends. I am like blitzed out of my skull, for lack of a better word. And she calls me. She goes, hey, there's someone in the house. Someone broke into the house. I don't want to go home. So instantly, buzz gone. I'm like, I gotta go protect my mom, guys. I'll be right back. All the adrenaline kicked in. I get in the car and I fly back to my house. I go in the house like ready to rock. I'm like, yo, someone's trying to like break into the house, hurt my mom. Let's go. I go in, nothing. The door is locked tight. Like no one came in the front, no one came in the back. Nothing was out of place. Everything was fine. I called her, telling her everything is okay. She comes home. She tells me what she saw, and she's like, I think that was probably a ghost or something, because like again, really big, perfectly still, and just staring outside, staring into like nothingness. There was an imp she used to see in the house. I don't know if we touched that like in the first like episode.
We did.
By the way, imps, I just have this vision seared in my head already, because in the remaster of Oblivion, one of the first things you fight in the game are imps.
Yeah.
And like
Oh,
you remember
yeah.
that? And like
Yeah.
I don't know if that was in the original one.
Dave, in the first episode, you mentioned your mom. They're like Catholic plus other.
Right.
Did your mom ever try to do anything to get a handle on what was going on in the home? Because at a certain point, I'm sure she was like, fuck this. We got to do something. Did y'all try anything?
Yes. First, what she would do is, normal like Catholicism stuff, like buy an extra crucifix, get holy water from church and like draw like holy water crucifixes on the house, like, or on doors. She would do that stuff first and it would work for some time. Whenever it came back or got worse, then she would do like the other stuff, like not burning sage, but burning like paper in the home. And I think it was like you had to write something on the paper or something and burn it and let the smoke get in the house. But it wasn't sage. Like sage was never a thing in our home. Or she would, I think we discussed this like also last week, where she would like get a glass of water. It was a specific cup she would use for this. We never drank out of this cup. And she would crack an egg and put the egg yolk and white into the cup. And it would take the form of whatever was in the house. Or she would usually do like divination or some stuff like that. What else? Just random, not really novena candles, but like, candles lit in certain rooms. She would have like oil that she would use to put like crosses on and stuff. I think when we finally moved, that's when we really discovered some of the heavy stuff she was doing, because like we had to clean out her closet because she ended up having like an aneurysm, and then we had to like clean out her room and stuff. She's fine, by the way. Like somehow that tough 80-year-old lady survived an aneurysm. It was my wife and my sister-in-law. They went into like her closet and it looked like she possibly took blood or something else and had like symbols marked on the wall in her closet. They're like, well, she obviously wasn't calling something. She must have been trying to stop something from coming in the house because she wasn't that lady, and whatever it was some hardcore shit, because it was like all, from how they described it, it was like all in the closet, like a regular, closet, not a walk-in closet, but like every single wall and every single square inch had like some type of like funky symbol on it that was like with like red or brown paint. So it was either blood or something else. I don't know, but yeah, but I'm not sure what it was. And she would do other weird stuff, like leave spoons in certain rooms, like in a certain position to prevent something from walking in the room. When we had to put our dog down, like we had to remove his body a certain way from the house so that nothing could follow the path back into the house. And just little superstitions, like whenever we'd go camping, or I would go camping, when I would leave the forest, I could not look back to the forest, or else I would bring something with me to the house. And that's if I left any forested area.
I've heard that one before.
Right?
Like even when I was younger and my family wasn't overly superstitious, I would hear that from time to time. It kind of made sense to me later. And I'm not saying this is why, but it's, that's biblical, right? Like you don't, what was it? The Sodom and Gomorrah story, that they turned around and she turned a pillar of salt.
Pillar of salt. Yeah.
That is so interesting culturally, right? You're like transcending cultures, you're touching different religions and different ideas, different locations around the world, but it's the same concept, like something about turning around and making eye contact with your awareness in that line of sight. If you wanted to go deeper into that conversation and tie it into today with, say, like the theory that we're living in a simulation and how things render, like things render in the distance, and like they don't render until you get up close to them. That'd be so interesting to theorize about that. Like maybe if you do turn around and make awareness of something in reality, it becomes more real. But how did people come up with that conclusion thousands of years ago and permeate time and culture before we even had technology to explain what could be a simulation or whatever? So that's kind of weird and crazy.
There's like a Greek myth that has to do with something that you just reminded me, has to do with like something similar. Someone was dragged down to the underworld. Her husband asked Zeus if I can go and get her. He asked someone to go get her, like made a bargain with Hades or whomever, and they're like, you can go get her. It
was Orpheus.
That was okay. Yes, and he wasn't allowed to look
liar.
Back. Yep. So again, you're like Dean, you're right. Similar thing where it's like he wasn't allowed to look back, or else he'd get dragged back again to the underworld. After he went back the second time, he never looked back again because he knew she was always back there. So very similar weird superstitions. Yeah.
Have you guys seen Chaos, the Netflix show with Jeff Goldblum? So Jeff Goldblum plays Zeus, and it's basically a dark comedy, and it's kind of like a reimagining of Greek mythology in more modern context. It's more of a mini series than a show because I think there's only 1 season, 8 episodes, and it's like from start to finish. But it is a crazy show. It's like one of those shows that like it started off comical, like you could tell like they wanted to be more comical with it, but then they butted up against the dark cosmic reimagining of Greek mythology, and they realized like, okay, this isn't going to be as funny as we hoped, because it got really like messed up. And they stayed pretty true to a lot of the Greek mythology, I think. But I would recommend that show.
Definitely look for it now.
With regards to superstitions, did you guys ever have this superstition? My family does, where like, if you come back from a funeral, you like have to turn around and enter your doorway backward.
Similar, yes. Like it's like because I've only been to one when we were living in that house. And my mom had to make, I remember what exactly she made me do, but I had to take my shoes off and do something before I walked into the house. I don't remember what it was. And then my clothes had to instantly be like taken off, and then we had to wash them instantly or something like that. But I don't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember something similar. Yes.
Yeah, I've always found that interesting as to why. Because there have been instances where I've been to funerals and I've never done any of that and nothing ever happened.
Right.
So it's like, with all those superstitions, it's like, are we keeping something alive in the sense that I'm sure you're familiar with tulpas, right? Where if you have enough people believing in something, it'll manifest into reality. With our background and the superstitions and everything that we have, like all these people believing and practicing these things, it makes me wonder, like, are we really haunted? Or is it just a manifestation of what our beliefs are? I'm not saying what you experienced in that Connecticut house and Jersey is a manifestation of your beliefs. Fuck no. To me, it sounds evil, but we could get into that in a little bit. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's something my brother and I used to discuss a lot, where it's like he noticed, because, all of our friends were also Hispanic and Latino. He was like, why is it they all have a haunted house story? Every single one in the Latino community has a haunted house story, or it had something happen to them that just can't be explained. Like, oh, it was like the wood creaking or a light in my eye. No, it was something that's like, I saw something happened. And he always wanted to find like the Warrens or find like someone who does ghost hunting. It's like, are Latino people cursed? Like, is something to do with like the Mayan religion, or because, most Latinos are descendant from Native Americans, that they're not praying to the old gods anymore. So the old gods are punishing them because of some reason. Like, like why is it always primarily like Latino people, that really experience it? Like in my entire life of haunted house talking about and stuff, like there's only one friend of mine who was white who experienced anything. And, his house was haunted. Yes. Like he was the only other person I knew who had stories. Everyone else was Latino that had like something, and it was always fucked up. Like, oh, I saw like my grandpa sitting in the car, or a weird bird thing. It was always like something like big, where it's like, I don't know. I can't explain my way out of that. Like, why,
Real quick, a weird thing. My sister told me this story. I think this happened in the Florida house or something like that. That my one cousin came over to visit, and a couple of other family members, but my one cousin can see things. Whatever situation had happened internally in the family, I guess the word got to the other side. My cousin is like looking through the window, and my mom like says to her, like, you look like you just saw a ghost. And she's like, yeah, I just saw grandpa and he looks fucking pissed off.
Oh.
That just came to mind talking about the superstitions and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, do they call this stuff to them by doing this? Or is it, like you said, maybe there's something a little bit more?
Like my mom used to explain it as, and I don't know if it's because, so if you really think about it, like if you really think about Latino culture, we're not too far removed from the old ways, like we're maybe at most 200 years removed from the old ways. Now, when I said I've never really met other white people had this issue, I misspoke. What I meant to say was I've never met like more Americanized people who have had these types of issues. Anyone I've ever met who is like first generation born American from like Italy or Ireland or Portugal, like anywhere from Europe, have had these things. Like sometimes have had these things. Maybe something about when you lose that old world culture, you lose that connection to the supernatural, the other side, this other plane, I guess you could call it. You know what I mean? Because you could tell when someone's been Americanized for a very long time. Like they can't even tell you like where their grandfather was from, where their grandparents were from, like any like, unless they're like from a regional area in the United States, they can't tell you anything about any regional food from their culture. And we've seen it, and it does happen. But notice if it's like a first generation born American, they're more seeing these things or in tune to these things. And it could be like from almost anywhere. Like I remember I had a buddy named Adam back in elementary school. He was Vietnamese. He always was wearing like some type of superstitial stuff like on him for tests and things for luck or like whatever, you know what I mean? It's like he always had something on him whenever he was taking a test for luck. And it's because, he's first generation born American. His parents literally came from Vietnam not too long ago. I think it's that something about the more you assimilate and forget where your culture is from, you almost lose that connection.
I think what gets me the most about this sort of thing, and I always get, Phyllis, I can't help but either deteriorate or elevate into philosophy. The first thing I start with when I think about it is like, well, when we're kids, when we're young, we are different people than we are now. Like we're the same, we're supposed to be the same person, right? But if you really think about it philosophically, most, if not all, of our childhood self is gone. Like we're not, we have different experiences. We're more mature. Our brains function differently. We might have memories from then, but we are wholly different people. And when I hear stories about like someone's grandfather appearing after passing away and they're like disheveled or upset or whatever, to me, that's like, fuck, that sounds so shitty. Like that means that if those entities are real and they're really like a separate being that people are seeing, then they're frozen in time at that age. There's seems like no progression. They're still upset about something. So that means that there's a lack of relief in some degree on that side, either being stuck or whatever. So it sounds like there's more negative than positive. I know this will resonate with you guys, but like you guys, we all grew up in like the Disney generation.
Yeah.
Where we have it seared into our minds of like the expectation that happy ending is going to come. There's always going to be a positive happy ending or twist, but as we get older we quickly see that the life does not work like that, and it almost seems like not fair in a way, because if people are experiencing these anywhere from like demonic experiences, or maybe their loved ones are coming back and they're angry or whatever, like there's just like, what do we do about it? Like you can't do anything about it. You're just stuck in that reality. And I know that's really negative and heavy, but like I just can't help but bring that up in a conversation like this. Maybe you have a more positive take on it, but let's hear it. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's the person that, because let's say, for instance, when you pass away, pass on, everyone's stuck. We'd see a lot more supernatural things, in my opinion, like a lot more. It could be maybe something about an area that keeps people stuck there, or they just couldn't let go of something, which is why like your grandpa looked upset, Chris, where it's like, it's because of you I can't cross over. I need you to do this thing so I can go home. Maybe that's why they look upset. It's like, you need to stop doing whatever it is you're doing so I can go home, and
right. Yeah. That could be a positive spin on it. Right.
Yeah. Or like, again, it's the area. Like think of it like Star Wars, for instance, like something that's like resonates with the dark side of the Force. Like things can't leave that area. They're just stuck there, or like Force ghosts are stuck in that area because it resonates with the dark side. And it's like, maybe it's similar with us where, the land around my house is fucked up. And if someone passes away there, they just can't leave because it's fucked up for whatever ungodly reason. Maybe it's the same with battlegrounds, or whenever like something sad really happens somewhere, like terrible, like Gettysburg. I've heard so many stories about Gettysburg being haunted and people seeing stuff.
Have you ever been there?
I have not. Friends of mine have.
I have multiple times. It's one of my favorite places to go.
But how did you see anything or hear anything?
At least I don't think I did. I've seen reenactors, but the people have always said that like sometimes it's apparitions, but
right.
Like you never know. It's still pretty cool nonetheless. So
my buddy used to do Civil War reenactments. And a really quick story. So they're out in the field wearing their freaking, uniforms and stuff. The North, so they have the blue uniforms and stuff. So they said an officer came up on horseback asking where the command tent is, and they were like, "Man, this guy's really sticking in the character." They're like, "No, yeah, the supply tent's over there." And he's like, "Soldier, where is the command tent? I need to find the command tent." And my buddy is like, she's like, "It's over there. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like where everyone meets up is at that tent. That's what the supply tent is. That's where you get like your lot number, all that stuff. It's over there." So the guy rode off upset, and they're like, "Who is that dickhead?" Because sometimes reenactors, they really get in the character and they can't separate that they're just wearing a costume. So they try to act like they're in charge. They finish doing what they were doing, then they go back to like where everyone was hanging out at the tent, and they're like, "Yeah, who's that asshole dressed as like a freaking officer who came up on horseback?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "There's some asshole dressed like an officer, came by, bitched at us about, where the command tent is, and then just rode off." And they're like, "Cavalry doesn't show up until tomorrow. Like, it's just us right now setting up like the camp. Who did you see?" And they're like, they would not let it go. Like, yo, someone either pulled a epic prank on us from around the neighborhood, because why wouldn't you, or like a dead officer rode up on us, wanted to know where the command tent was, and then I got pissed off when we didn't have the answer.
That would be the most overzealous, over the top prank I've ever heard in my life. Where like, let me get this horse and this, and like just for 2 seconds to mess with somebody. That doesn't seem like a very good prank because it's just too much work for a little payoff.
Right. And you have to like dress as an officer. You know how expensive it is to dress as an officer from like the Civil War? Like,
Right.
like
Saber.
shit.
You got, oh my God. I just thought about the best premise for a comedy movie. It's okay. There's a Civil War reenactor who, like you said, he's one of those guys who's just like way too into it. And he's out there in the battlefield, and then he gets fucking killed in his uniform, like doing the reenacting. And then he haunts the area with the other ghosts who are really from the Civil War. And he's just going through the worst time of his life. And then his friends have to try to bring him back from the dead. There you go. That's new comedy gold movie right there. Horror comedy.
That's
that would be funny.
I used to have a theory for like real quick, like why some people can see some things and some people can't. And I'm not sure if I discussed this on the last show, but so humans are basically evolved animals. We can kind of more or less agree on that, right? Like we're just talking monkeys to one degree or another. We have a lot of stuff that are left over from those times. Like if you can move your ears, that's because at some point our ancestors were able to move their ears to find like whatever they need to find for echolocation, not echolocation, but to find whatever danger. What there's a tendon in your wrist that not many people have. Of course, I have it because I'm a caveman. Those tendons have no purpose. They're there from when we used to walk on our hands. In fact, if you tear your Achilles tendon, they take this tendon if you still have it and they put it where your Achilles tendon used to be. So yeah, it's a lot of little things that are left over, you know, like just little things. Animals can sense the dead to a degree. They have that extra perception. It's not supernatural. It's just they have better ears than we do. They have better sense of smell than we do, you know, because they need us to live and survive. Who's to say that people who see ghosts don't have like that leftover trait from when we were still in trees, you know, that they can see, they can hear things a little bit better. They can smell things a little bit better. Like my cat always knows when there's going to be a thunderstorm, even hours before a thunderstorm hits. She knows. She starts freaking the fuck out. My cat knows when my wife comes home, when she's pulling up down the street. Like she already knows. She starts going towards the door before my wife even walks into our condo complex. You know, it's just she can sense when the change that's happening. Who's to say people who experience this are the same way? They still have that leftover trait from when we were cavemen, basically.
I would take that one further, and I would even say, like, as far as we know on this planet, we're the only living beings of this 3-dimensional space that have the depth of self-awareness and consciousness that we do.
Right.
Like we have a conscious, and as part of that consciousness, we have a subconscious, and in the subconscious, dumbing it down and generalizing it as much as possible, our subconscious does all this important stuff that we can't do consciously. And that includes breathing, our heart, all the internal functions and stuff. Like if we had to access that in our conscious mind and balance that, we would just die.
Right.
Like there'd be no way we could balance that. So going back to your point, there are remnants of things that are in our bodies and our minds and stuff that we just don't understand, that are left over from thousands and millions of years ago, whatever. Who's to say there's not some subconscious routine or processing that goes on for different people at different degrees of their lives? Maybe some people have more capability, less. Maybe it spills over into the consciousness. Like maybe that's why, you know, hair stands up on the back, like you're saying, like we get these senses or visions or whatever. And I would take it one step further, and I would say, well, if you subscribe to the idea, the fact that we evolved from primates, well, we know scientifically that if you're looking at that, you can go even back to like prokaryotes, and like when everything started on this planet, everything was on the same playing field at that level before it branched off into, you know, millions of different angles of development and evolution. So what does that mean? Like, you know, going all the way back to the beginning, we have a common ancestors and stuff. And like, it's almost like I think about mycelium or something that are underneath the ground, like that, those vast networks of, for lack of a better term, like mushroom systems or whatever.
Yeah.
And they talk to each other over miles and react to stuff. And I think it's like similar for humans, even though we're separate, like there's some kind of resonance or connection that we don't fully understand that plays off of each other. And then you talk about like negative energy in a room when people walk in, like you just know, sometimes some people claim like, I just know I don't like that person when I meet them, or I really like them.
Good chemistry. Yeah, good chemistry or bad chemistry. It's like,
yeah, it's
like,
a real thing, right? Yeah, it's just crazy. There's a study where they would have people sweat, they would work out, and they would put these people on treadmills and they would sweat into these vials. And they would capture the sweat, and then they would have a second group of people and they would make them sweat through actual fear. I think it was like a roller coaster or something that would make the person, and they captured that sweat. And then they had the control group of the people who had no idea where the sweat was captured from. And the autonomic response, the sweat smell from the stressed people elevated the smellers to the point of where they were getting stressed as well. And then when they would let the people smell the sweat from the people who were running on a treadmill where there was no stress or fear, there was no response. So like, imagine you walk into a room, like you're smelling things, you don't understand why you feel a certain way. It's, pheromones are a real thing. And there's your first example.
I've heard of that. Like I study, like when you're saying it, I'm like, that's kind of cool. Oh wait, I have heard of this. Yes. Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to touch on real quick, Dave, before we close out the show, you were talking about people from different cultures having these experiences. And then you mentioned, people from Central South America and the Caribbean. They're 200 years maybe removed from the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you say that, because when you go visit these places, there are still people that practice the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like where my mom grew up, their neighbor was literally fucking called the Bruja. She told me this one story when she said that she was a little girl. Well, her mom was still alive. Her mom passed away. My grandmother passed away when she was 9. So never got to meet her, unfortunately. That she told her specifically, and I don't know, maybe your mom told you this as well, or maybe her mom told her that after sundown, you do not look out the window, especially if you're in the countryside. You do not look out the window. Do not look at the animals at night, because you're going to see something you don't want to see. You're going to see animals with red eyes. You're going to see people that shapeshift, something of that sort. Apparently, my mom, she might have seen like a donkey with like blood red eyes. And there was another instance where apparently this witch was a shapeshifter, and she shapeshifted into like a dog or something, but still kept her human eyes.
Jesus.
She would always tell us oh, don't look outside at night, because you're going to see something that you'll never forget. And I don't know if she's just bullshitting, but knowing the people from the countryside, 9 times out of 10, they're not.
Right.
Because they see something and this shit comes from somewhere.
So the only thing my mom ever said to us was never whistle at night. That was the big thing. Never ever whistle at night. Because that's how you can call stuff. With that said, trying to remember on the spot right now, so it just sparked like a tiny memory. I went to El Salvador with my mom, and we visited my grandma, her mother. She was out there in the sticks. So I remember hanging out with my cousins back over there, in the sugar fields at night, and eating sugar cane from the stalk and whatnot. I remember one night, grandmother had a lot of cats, country cats. We were in the house. It was a mud hut practically. Think an adobe from out west. I remember we were in the house. It sounded like there was thunder or something going off in the distance. And my grandma was very, very, very just on don't open the doors and don't open the windows at all. And she didn't have windows. They were just wood shutters. That's all that she had for windows, not even glass. I remember hearing the cats outside screeching bloody murder at something out there, outside, just yelling and screaming, whatever. And my mom saying it's okay, don't worry about it, just stay in bed, you'll be fine. But I don't remember what it was. I remember the next day, because I remember it was rain, because I remember hearing specifically thunder, and I was thinking that the next day it was going to be kind of muddy, because when it rained in El Salvador, it really rained. It wasn't just little spritz. It was a tidal wave of rain out there. And I remember oh, it's going to be all muddy tomorrow. I won't be able to play with my friends in the mud. But it being dry everywhere the next day. I don't remember why we had to keep everything closed. Now, keep in mind, when we went to visit, this could be very logical. When we went to visit when I was 2 or 3, I think the Civil War was happening in El Salvador. So that probably was it. That might have been the sounds I heard of just the thunder distance, probably explosions. And why everything had to be closed just in case. But I remember specifically the cats yowling bloody murder at something while they were outside. So if it was soldiers, why wouldn't the soldiers come in the house? They obviously knew they were there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, and again, this is 2 or 3. I could be getting a lot of details wrong, but I remember, it was either 86 or 87 when I was in El Salvador. I remember that particular night. I remember it raining a lot at one point, hanging out in the sugarcane fields with my cousins. And that's about, I do remember that night just being a very odd, weird night.
This is why I imagine white people get killed faster in these situations. Because It's like, oh, look at that. It's like, oh, look, a strawberry. And then it's just like growing into a monster. And it's just like, oh, it's so interesting. And then meanwhile, everybody else who's like, have all this stuff happen to them based in their ethnic background, brought up for years on this stuff. Like, okay, run, you're going to die. And the way it's just because the reason why I thought of that is when I was a kid and you're talking about cats, you just reminded me, I have not thought about this in years. I woke up one night when I was like 12 or 13 to a cat just not screeching, but like meowing so loudly out of my bedroom window. I was on the second floor. My room was on the second floor. We had it was like a story and a half house. It wasn't quite 2 stories. And you look down from my window and there's just the driveway. And this cat it was maybe like 12:31 in the morning. Nobody was outside. It was dark. There was a full moon out. So I could see this cat is just meowing at my window. Never had this happen before in my life. Never saw a stray cat in all the years I lived there up until that point. And it just randomly picked my house meowing at my window. And I'm laughing at this now because you're telling the story about you're immediately going to like, okay, how do I protect myself? What's going on? Like you're asking the important questions. How can I make sure I don't get obliterated tonight? My dumb ass at 12-year-olds was like looking at like, oh, hey, buddy, what are you doing out there? And that's it, like in a horror comedy movie where just the cat just like gets wings and just springs at your like right at your face.
Waiting for you, motherfucker.
Yeah. But like my mind as growing up, not in the same background that you guys grew up with, my mind at the time as a kid was like, oh, interesting. That it didn't even enter my mind that there could be something supernatural or creepy. The fact that this cat picked my window, why was it meowing at my window so loudly? And now thinking back on it after hearing stories like you guys tell, my mind's like, oh shit, maybe that was something supernatural or creepy that I could have read more into. So this is why we have this podcast, so we all learn.
Yeah.
Whatever it was probably like, you know what? That was too easy. I'm gonna leave this kid alone because I don't think it's worth it. Like,
yeah, he's too dumb. Like this is too easy for me to like, it's too much of an easy target.
Right. Last question of the day, Dave. I know last time, I think I might have asked you this in the last podcast that we did, but I have to bring it up again, given, the stories that you shared today. Do you still truly think that whatever was in that home was just neutral? I'm not going to say it's demonic because there's certain characteristics for something to be labeled demonic, right? You got to have the sulfur smell, the whole nine. There's specific traits that you can identify for something to be demonic. I'm not opposed to the notion that it's probably something older that enjoyed feeding off of you. What are your thoughts on that?
So I honestly believe whatever was in that house was definitely neutral, and it would most likely react to how someone else may have seen it, just reacted to how someone else reacted to it. Because we've never, in that entire time anyone was in that house, nothing physically violent ever happened to them. They were just frightened because they saw something they could not explain. And a lot of times it sounded like whatever it was either curiously watching, confused to why whomever it was there, or it was just going about its day, doing its whatever it does when it was alive or when it's by itself in the home. So there was never anything like, I think it was neutral, and you're correct. I think it was older and it knew we could see it or we knew we could feel it. That's why sometimes it would sometimes interact with us. Like my mom always says, people who see things are like a lighthouse in the ocean. The world of the undead is a dark, dark place. And if someone could see them, they're a light out there in the ocean, like a lighthouse. That means they will go towards that lighthouse to see what it is, and depending on what kind of light you have, you either attract good things or bad things, because there's people who see very terrible things, that's probably what was in the house, because it got more frequent and like just more, I don't want to say powerful, it got more repetitive the longer we were in that house and the longer there was another female member of the family in the house. With that said, the day we left, I felt like very, very something was going to happen. We moved out, sold the house, gone. I was the last one in that house. My brother sent me there to, make sure everything, dummy check, make sure we got all the stuff out, everything set up, doors are locked, leave the key on the dresser or whatever, on the countertop, and then leave. And I was walking around taking photos of everything, just so, whoever bought the house can't say, oh, you damaged the wall or something, blah, blah. So I'm walking around and I just felt like something was behind me, like 2 steps away the entire time I was walking in the house. Like something was here or here or here. Like something was always right behind me. It just felt bad. Like, I don't know, because it was angry we were leaving, or if it was sad because we were leaving. but something was not happy we were getting out of the house, and it was just focusing everything it had on me, because the pressure and the feeling of sadness I had was, yes, I was moving out of my family home. Yes, it was my childhood home we're moving out of. There is something attached to that. But the type of sadness I felt as I was leaving was like the type of sadness you'd feel like at a funeral, or when you have to put like a pet down. You know what I mean? Like it's like that type of sadness that's like, it's not me quitting a job or moving somewhere. It's a completely different kind of sadness. Because when we moved out of our old apartment to here, our first apartment my wife and I had together, I didn't feel that at all. I was sad we were leaving, yes, but I didn't feel like, oh, this sucks, it's bad. When I was leaving there, it felt bad. And that was the only time ever in that house I felt like I need to get out of here quick before something bad is about to happen. The only time.
You were going to get sucked into the wall like a day laborer.
Dude, probably. Yeah. It was just probably like, turn around, look at me. Turn around, look at me. That's all I need you to do. Just turn around, look at me so I can suck you into the wall. Come on, man. Give me a win.
Just one time. Dave, it was awesome meeting you, man. I'm so glad I got to get on with you today. I didn't say this real quick, but you have the best beard I've ever seen, and I can see why you have the Bearded Menace thing. It's a much better beard than mine, so I hope I can keep seeing you with that beard. You got to come back on, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dave, thanks again for coming on for a part 2, my good sir. I really appreciate your time and you coming on to share these stories, these additional stories from your family. I think you did mention before that sister had some experiences in the home that she purchased in Connecticut, but I don't think we got into that yet. So maybe we got to do a part 3.
Yeah, like let me know. I'll do a better job at writing some of these stories down, because there's, and especially, to give like your listeners like something to look forward to. There's an Indian people saw in the house. 3 other people saw that, and no one talked about it. Yes. 3 other people saw that Indian. Not one of these people talked to each other about it, ever. The old woman, obviously, different people have seen in the house that we've already mentioned. There's still some stories in that house to tell, and the house my sister lived in, and so on. So,
all right, you heard that, folks. Look forward to a part 3 coming soon. But Dave, the last thing I'll say about you mentioning them seeing an Indian, when I went to visit, my mom's from the Dominican Republic. I went to visit. This was probably like 2003, 2004. I think I was 13 at the time. The way the countryside is set up, like everybody lives in close proximity. So here's my mom's house where she grew up. Here's my uncle's house. And you just have to walk across this path. And in the middle of the path, if you look to the right, there's like this wooded area, but the dirt path continues to the other side of the property, where the other houses are. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I'm walking across that path. Something tells me in my mind to stop. I stop. I look over and I see what looks like a Taino Indian.
No.
Fast forward to 2010. I'm back home from college. My aunt, my mom's oldest sister, is visiting from DR. They're in the kitchen. They're talking about this exact thing, how it's like a guardian for my aunt. And I was like, oh, you're talking about El Indio. And my aunt's face like went pale. She's like, how the fuck do you know about that? Nobody's ever talked about that. I've never talked to anyone about that. No one's ever seen it. And I was like, yep, I saw it. This is what it looked like. And I described the same thing that's been with her entire life.
We should definitely schedule a part 3. Not that I'm trying to invite myself onto your show.
No, 100%.
And we'll start off with, I'll retell the story my mom told just to get people, back into it. But start off with the Indian. Like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like 4 different people saw in that house or around that house.
Damn, that's crazy. I'm looking forward to that one. But before we end, Dave, where can the people find you on social media?
So you can find me on TikTok for now until it gets banned again, possibly, but on TikTok at Dave the Bearded Menace. You can also find me on Instagram at Dave the Bearded Menace. You can find me on Blue Sky, Dave the Bearded Menace, X at Dave the Bearded Menace, and of course, my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Dave the Bearded Menace. Depending on when you listen to this recording, Tuesdays I do model painting, Warhammer 40K, tabletop, stuff like that. Sometimes I build a Gundam. Thursdays I do gaming, and currently I am doing my second playthrough of The Last of Us Part 2, and I usually go live 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So find me and YouTube at Dave the Bearded Menace as well.
Awesome. You heard him, folks. Go ahead, give him a follow. Check out his streams. I watch his streams on Thursdays when he plays games. It's a fun time. And dude, the next game you got to stream is Oblivion Remake. So
we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you tune in for part 3 when Dave comes back. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Wandering Road. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to give a follow on Instagram at twroadpodcast and follow my TikTok at twrpodcast. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.